Hey Josh, what'd you put for writer's purpose? All right, take a look at the sheet. What do you got writer's purpose for first one, AndofClay?
I said to entertain because it tells a fake, entertaining story by having the reader emotionally connected
Come on, maybe. There we go. Okay, so you said entertain, and I know you said like kind of like fake story, which would be with fiction. You were going with that emotional connection. Okay. Couple things about this one. Keep in mind, it's taking a look at what is the author's purpose. You can argue about how successful a writer is when it comes to that whole idea of entertaining. But if you are doing a story, if you're doing a poem, if you're doing something that is fiction-based, essentially it's a given that you are looking to entertain. I think a pretty good way to look at as to why would something be entertaining, if there is an emotional, maybe not even necessarily a connection, the hope would be that there is an emotional connection, and I would say with two people. Who is the author, Aliande, trying to get an emotional connection of the reader with? Azucena is going to be one, for sure. And I think in another extent, to maybe a lesser extent, lesser degree a little bit, you're also trying to get a little bit of an emotional connection with Rolf, because he's the person who is still going to be living on after the plot happens, and maybe being able to look at life in a more complete way than before. But at the very least, if you're getting some kind of emotional response, you're tapping into the emotions of the reader, you're probably being fairly successful with entertaining. It could be a tragic story and still be entertaining. It could be a happy ending story and still be entertaining, or comedy, things along those lines. So if you're getting that emotional connection, it's going to be entertaining. I do think you could make arguments to a lesser extent that is trying to inform about a situation that happened in Colombia in 1985. You could argue that maybe to persuade you to look at things a little bit different than you did before. But when it comes to the primary objective, 100%, no doubt she's looking for someone to entertain. And again, that emotional connection, that emotional response that you're looking for. On the flip side, when it comes to the ill-equipped rescuers article, purpose of it, switch colors here, is definitely to inform, no doubt. It's letting you know about, it's giving you details to know about an event, to know about a tragedy. It's not to say that you might not get an emotional connection or response, but the primary thing that they're trying to do, relay facts, relay information. Could it be entertaining? Hopefully not, since you're looking at a disaster. You could end up maybe being persuaded that you're going to donate goods to Red Cross, UNICEF, organizations, things like that, in order to hopefully help some folks. But you're definitely looking at the whole idea about to inform. And these two things kind of play off each other then when it comes to the point of view. Jack, what do we say about the point of view of the first one?
I'd say that the point of view is from somebody, or it impacts reading. I'm sorry. The point of view is by having a person narrating their role being helpless and they have to watch the situation.
Who's the narrator? Okay, so our point of view is, and this is a little review from what we did of the act of reading, it's first person point of view in the sense that the girlfriend, I'm just going to put GF, is the narrator. And so you said how she's kind of feeling a sense of helplessness, so you kind of have that emotional connection with the events, with the people, with the characters. Specifically, characters that we're taking a look at, we're going to Rolf and Azucena in this case. All right. Point of view of the article. Maddie's birthday. She has good answers. What's point of view of the article? Third person. And I would probably, not by no means going incorrect answer, I would add a word here to it. Third person, not omniscient. Because if you're omniscient, you know what's going on in everyone's mind. Generally, you'll have third-person omniscient if it's going to be a work of fiction. You could argue limited, where you don't know everything. So I could be interviewing someone, and Logan's giving me answers, but that doesn't mean I know absolutely everything that's going on in this head. Not narrative. O word, though. Like omniscient, but objective. And what we mean, Justice, focus here on here. What we mean by objective is that we are not emotional. So you are just simply looking, if you are trying to inform, if you're trying to be informational, you're going to be third person objective with that whole idea. Now, when it comes to like talking about why is Aliande effective in what she's trying to do, well, her word choice, her tone, which we're taking a look at this part down here, this is going to be much more subjective because it's going to get an emotional response then from you as a reader. So, specific words with page numbers, what are particular words that she uses to try to get a emotional response coming from you? Connor, what's one word? Can be anywhere. Okay. What page number? And there are certainly more than 3 words that we could take a look at. So if you don't have this word, it doesn't mean you missed it by any means. But yeah, catastrophe, cataclysm gets used, page 309. That would certainly work.
I said intolerable torture.
So not just torture, but the fact that it is intolerable torture.
Hey, I said that.
308.
Said the word desolate.
What do you have for page number?
307.
307.
I didn't say that either.
Okay.
Couple other things that I have thrown out. I mean, we already, weeping and wailing were provided in there. On page 306, so at the very beginning, where the weeping and wailing, you have the orphans. So as opposed to just simply saying children, by mentioning orphans, you're going without parents. Desolate, catastrophe, cataclysm, that's all certainly letting you know that this is a horrific incident that took place as opposed to just simply having an event. Feudal, weariness, cataclysm, quagmire, scream, all things that have a stronger tone to it. Like, I was going to say, is it quagmire? Okay. I knew it was supposed to be that Family Guy, right? Yeah. Problem that cannot basically be solved. So it certainly has a negative connotation to it. How about word choice for the article? Okay. Nate, what do you have a page number for that one? 316. Yeah. What page number? 317. Julia? Decomposing? Yeah. Is that 315? 316. Other options that could certainly be out there: crushed bodies, mangled mass of junk and corpses. So certainly just because it's objective, they're also trying to give you descriptive terms that could still kind of establish some kind of emotional connection that would be happening. I want to keep on this side of it. So still going with now the descriptive details, poignant details. Poignant means that it's going to be details that kind of elicit a mournful or kind of solemn tone. So you look at it, it's generally going to be sad. Now, not necessarily word choice, but just little details, could be statistics, could be facts, that are going to cause a reader to maybe look at something a little bit more emotionally than before. Cesare, what's one of your details for the article? One of your details for the article, bottom block. Right here.
Okay, girl grasping her
Girl, her deceased aunt. Okay. So, grasping dead relative. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase here a little quick. What else?
They feared that the rising water would drown them.
Okay. So, just put rising water. And certainly the story kind of reinforces that this could lead to people drowning. Nate?
Make sure I don't have it. There we go. 13-year-old whose feet were pinned by falling concrete.
Okay. Keyword there, pinned. How many people died in the disaster? 20,000. So you have 20,000 who are deceased. You have 1 to 2 who are still trapped in the ruins, such as being pinned by concrete. You also have, and they mentioned the girl who is very much like an Azucena situation, where on page 317, the only thing that she wants are some cookies or like biscuits, just to kind of sustain her a little bit. So what is it that you need? What is it that you want that she's holding on for dear life? All she wants are some cookies. So it could be just a simple little example like that where you realize how horrific a situation is, but she just wants something to eat to try to sustain herself for a little bit longer. Now, we're going to have similar details that are kind of going on here in the story. What would be our descriptive details? Not necessarily worried about word choice, but worried about examples, details that we have going on in the story at this point. So now we're switching back over to our fictional accounts. Logan, so what's one that you got there in the bottom box? For the story. Okay, so essentially the moment when she dies. Okay, so description when Azucena passes away. Nate?
Azucena's brothers and sisters were clinging to her.
Okay, so that whole quote where clinging to her legs, her relatives, her families.
So that I was there when she told us that over 2 years, we never got 30 just scrolling without knowing love.
Okay, so like when she's got what experiences that she has not had, not knowing love, and certainly a different love, I would say, because she's probably talking more about relationship love. But Dylan brought up the question last week: why doesn't he simply leave and go try to get some kind of pump? Mentioned that it ties back to his sister, where he feels responsible for leaving her and doesn't want to leave Azucena. And you have a person who says that she's never known love. He's going to stay with her as long as he can to try to reinforce that love is still a possibility for all people. So you're dealing with details. Up here at the top, it was more specific words that we're looking at: catastrophe, torture, desolate, intolerable. Down here, what are poignant details that help kind of elicit these responses? These two columns, or not columns, but these two blocks, this will probably be your focal point that you're going to take a look at when it comes to the constructed response that we're going to do. Not only do you certainly want to be able to know what the details would be, but then the page numbers kind of help you out with some of those things as well. So the description of Azucena passing away, that's certainly going to be at the end of the story. Logan, do you have that page number available? 313. Nate, yours is, I think, what, 308?
Yeah.
310? 312? So these give you places then that you can come and take a look at to see what would be those details that you're going to look at. Another area where you might be able to get some details coming from is going to be the examples of figurative language that we have. Most of the ones, and you could certainly do multiple types: simile, metaphor, foreshadowing, imagery, etc. I'd say simile is probably your best bet. That shows up pretty frequently within the course of the passage. Amy, what's one of your figurative language examples for the story?
I did one for foreshadowing.
Okay.
I did one where she's talking about the star.
Fading away.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and you could say foreshadowing. You could use simile. Both of them would certainly work. That one's page 309, I believe, where staring through a telescope at the light of a dead star. So simile, foreshadowing would work, yeah, for either one. Gavin, what do you have for figurative language? And that's page 313. Sank slowly like a flower into the mud. What's Azucena stand for? Lily. So type of flower sinking back in.
With the wait, are you going for the next one?
Yeah.
With the first leg, Rolf tried again to dislodge the option and held the drum.
What number or what page?
313.
313. Okay. You want to read it one more time?
With the first light, Rolf tried again to dislodge the option and held her tomb.
And what's ultimately going to be her tomb, or is her tomb? Mud pit, the earth, AndofClay are recreated, so a flower comes from the ground, and then when it's all said and done, it's going to sink back in. Where's it going back? To the ground, to the mud pit, to the earth, to the clay in which it was created. So you get that cyclical effect that's kind of starting to take place. Thematic down here as to what are ideas that we are simply trying to get across. We already threw out some ideas with AndofClay when we were kind of going over the active reading assignment. It's a tragic story, so it's not one that tends to kind of be uplifting, but what would be lessons, morals that we can take from it when it's all said and done? What do you think? Connor, what do you got? I think a lot of people are confused on it based on the looks that I'm getting. Okay, well, you can. All right. Nate? The determination? Not the termination. The limit. Okay. Yeah. No matter what's going on, obstacle-wise. Nate, number 2. All right. And certainly she still fights through it. Rolf is still kind of fighting through his own experiences. I'm sorry, strangers? Okay. Or at least like unexpected surprises or events in situations where you wouldn't expect it. Life is certainly going to be filled with horrific events, but there's still the necessity to care for other people. So yeah, could be dealing with, and I'm just going to put words instead of a full phrase, but it could be about determination, could be about surprises, could be about the needs to still care, to care/love, friendship. From Ralph Carley's standpoint, it could be about memories. You can't necessarily escape your past. At some point, you have to kind of confront those things, even if you're trying to dodge them from time to time, as would be going on with his sister. When it comes to state your own words as to what is the overall message that's kind of coming across within the article, it's informing you about a horrific event that happened. So it's not necessarily going to be something about you still need to determine, you still need to care for other people. There still could be some surprises that take place. But this one's going to be pretty much straightforward where, what's the title of the article? No, the article. What's it mean to be ill-equipped?
Not equipped.
Not
Poorly equipped.
So, and it doesn't mean that it's necessarily their fault, but they don't have the necessary means to do the rescue that is required. So, the enormity, the catastrophe, but the catastrophic events, but the enormity of the disaster made rescue efforts essentially hopeless. No matter what they did, no matter how much they gave, they weren't going to be able to rescue everyone as much as needed. Why? Because there's no way that a person could have been prepared, or an organization could have been prepared based on the enormity of the disaster that these folks were dealing with. All right, coming out to you. Don't worry, I want you to flip the page over. Not worried about the front page with all the lines. Worry more about the second page, which I'll actually pass it out this way, with the rubric that we're looking at, so that we can go over and make sure we're clear with what it is we need to do. Yeah, I kind of put the canvas away. The world is a canvas.
Oh.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
Could you imagine if that was? I would just be in a constant state of fear and murderous rage.
There it is.
You'd have to look at your phone out
Wait, what movie bring up
my superhero.
You were just trying to
All right, so for your rubric that you have the prompt on both sides. You have the prompt on the sheet that has the lines. You also have the prompt that's above the rubric here. So taking a look at the prompt to make sure we're clear with what it's asking us to do. Explain how Alande uses details from the story to elicit. Elicit means you elicit something.
Yeah.
It's not a big word. It's only
Okay. Yeah.
6 letters.
If you read
Elicit an emotional response from the reader. Pretty much. So, Brendan, since you're going, this is a big word. Just to eliminate confusion, you have the term elicit, which we're looking at here. To like receive, to get. It could be like to pull from something. I'm going to elicit a response from you. What you don't want to do is confuse it with illicit, which is ILLICIT. That means that it is illegal. So if you have an illicit item, you have something that you should not have. What we're looking at, certainly with this one, is going to be the first one. What are the details that she uses in the text to get, to receive from the reader, to pull from the reader an emotional response? Be sure to identify specific details from the text. I would think that using, and you could certainly use your active reading, you could also obviously use this fiction versus nonfiction sheet that we looked at. As I mentioned, the 2 places that you would probably want to start with would be tone, word choice, descriptive details. Now, you can't simply go, she uses the word catastrophe on page 309, because you would have to cite the example like the sentence where it's showing up. So the amount of information that you have in your sheet might not quite be enough, but it would certainly be something that could take you to the example that you would want to use. I don't think so. Take a look at the description for a score of 3. The response is a clear and thoughtful analysis of how Alande uses the detail, how Dante uses I messed that up. uses details to elicit an emotional response from the reader. Makes better sense than the other one. The response accurately identifies at least 3 separate and quoted details from the passage that contributes towards the emotional response. The writer, and underline this in the box for the score of 3, because this is the part that I see someone forgetting. The writer fully explains the emotional response from the reader and how the details help to shape it. So if you simply identify what would be 3 examples of the terms, of the examples, of the details from the story, and you say that that's getting an emotional response, but you don't explain what the emotional response is or how it makes that connection, then you're going to be sitting in the land of 2. So in order to maximize, make sure you are fully explaining how those details pull a response from the reader, whether it is to feel sympathy, empathy, sorrow, anything along those lines with specific character.
So we could just use all 3 of those and then go back to
You could use those words as the basis for getting examples, probably yes, most likely. What you can't do, and Dylan, not that you were asking to do this, but what you can't do are use these or use these because you're pulling from the newspaper article, you're not pulling from the story. So make sure for this one that you are pulling specifically from the story itself. The other thing would be, and you would have to go back and take a look at the examples, but page 307, 308, 309, if you simply went with those, you could be having 3 details that are in such close proximity to one another that you're not really getting enough from the story to kind of explain. If you were taking catastrophe from page 309, you were talking about or say clinging to her legs, page 308. Took your example from page 309. The description of her passing away, page 313. That's certainly separate enough that you're getting stuff from the whole entire story that it would work out for you. The way that this is going to be graded. Josh, what's the highest score you can get on a free response question?
3.
Way to be quick on your feet.
What?
You get a 1, you can get a 2, or 3. There are varying degrees of 3s. There are varying degrees of 2s. So we could have Nate writing an essay. We could have, not an essay, I'm sorry, a constructive response. We could have Nate writing a constructive response. Could have Maddie writing a constructive response. They could both get scores of 3, but we could go, you know what, hers is better. That's a better 3. Yours just barely kind of makes the 3. The score that I'm going to give you on these, and this is different from what we've done before, is for each thing you could get a 3 plus, a 3, or a 3 minus. So it would be me saying no matter what, it's a 3, but this is the best 3. This is still a 3, but it's a lower end 3. Do the same thing for 2s. 2 plus, 2, 2 minus, 1 plus, 1, 1 minus. So if you get a 3 plus, 10 points, 9 points, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Or 0 for not completing. So it's not just, all right, am I getting my 3 details? Am I identifying the emotions? If I'm doing those things and I still meet the criteria of a 3, but the argument is not as clear or as articulated, it could be a 3 minus 8 out of 10, which is not bad, still 80%. But if you fit everything in there to a T, you have good control of language, you're following through with your simple, your compound, your complex, we're talking 3 plus, that would put you in 10. Nate, and then maybe other Nate.
When is this due?
All right, so tomorrow, I'm giving you all period to work on this tomorrow. I would want it to be by the end of class tomorrow. If you want to, since you have a book at home, go find your example so that when you come in, you know exactly what it is it's going to be. That'd be perfectly fine. You want to write some outlines, get started, that you can. I didn't put it on Google Classroom yet. I will today, so that you'd have the ability to either give me the handout back as the constructive response, or you want to type it tomorrow on iPad, on Google Classroom, I'm okay with that. I won't have laptops in class. So it's either iPad or online sheet of paper. Friday, SoCap. Don't forget about that.
Yeah.